Hello again, it's me. I'm back. Today, I'm here with good news because as it wasn't something that I was planning from the start. This week was actually a good week, and for the ones who don't know exactly what I'm doing here, I'm rebuilding my life. I arrived to a moment when I think that I cannot keep on going with the same lifestyle mentality, and I think that I was suffering from the inside more than I was able to admit to myself. And I decided to start those videos to document each week how I'm going through life, rethinking everything and asking questions out loud, because I think that it might be the case for someone else. And if those videos that I'm doing right now might help someone besides myself, I will be more than welcome. So, to give you a quick sum up of my week, last week was the lowest point. I think that I realized those last 6 months have had a lot of, I wouldn't say up and downs, I will say more downs. And it made me rethink if the problem was myself, if things were happening to me because I'm not going to say that because I deserve them, but if I had something to do with the things that were happening to me. And I thought that the answer was yes. And when I opened that door, I think that I felt the lowest I have ever felt. It was I was talking with a friend of mine who came to dinner, and I was telling him that I had spent 10 hours in my bedroom having really low thoughts and without being able to really know what I was thinking and be able to control my feelings. And from that day, I decided that the best way I had to keep moving forward was to open myself as a book. And these videos are going to be seen by my family and friends, so they are going to recognize me. And I thought that it was a nice exercise to do them in English first, because I want to improve my communication skills in English. I'm able to do it in French and Spanish, but I wanted to do them in English. And that was the day I discovered this red notebook, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I think that was one of the exercises I wanted to do a long time before, but I think that as I'm learning, or I've learned this week, is at your lowest points where you really start moving, and it helps build a new version of yourself, and this notebook is helping me to do so. So I'm going to give not advices, but tell you what I have been doing this week. And I think that the exercise was really helpful. At least I think that I'm feeling more in control of my thoughts, and also more in connection to my true self, because I was able to ask the questions out loud and be able at least to sit and write them down. So the first page of my notebook, even though the questions are in Spanish, I'm not going to tell everything out loud, but to give you an idea of what the exercise I was going through this week was about. It's uncomfortable questions. And I think that those are the questions that on your day-to-day, you keep doing your routine and day stuff. And if they come to your mind, you are always putting them aside and not really being true to yourself, because it can hurt your feelings. And I think that that was the moment for me to do so. To give you an example, one of the first questions I asked myself is, why does it hurt so much when you fail? And that was a personal question, because I think that it was totally connected with something else that might start with ego and some other things that happened in my childhood, and I wanted to prove to someone else's that I was worth it instead of doing it to myself. And that question was harder to ask out loud that to give a straight and forward answer. And I think that the exercise the first day was really to write uncomfortable questions, because the exercise and the will you needed to have to admit to yourself that the questions you were asking yourself were because there was really something to dig deeper. I think that it was truly helpful. There were some others, just to give you examples, but I asked myself, why am I so scared to rebuild myself? Because this same exercise I'm doing right now came before in sooner in my life to my mind, and I wasn't able to do it. And one of the first guesses I was having was, didn't you weren't able to do them at that time because you were scared? Are you scared right now to rebuild yourself because you are going to find things that are going to make you uncomfortable, but you need to accept them, because if not, you are not going to be able to change your life really and live your 10 next years differently than the 10 last years you lived? And I think those questions are really the ones I need to sit during those following weeks and be able to answer to myself and really go deep into what I'm feeling and why I am feeling that way. And that was the first exercise I did. After asking the uncomfortable questions, the second page was being able to write my fears, because I think that those were the ones on a daily basis I wasn't able to totally accept, or at least to say it out loud, because at least fears are fears and it makes you at least it's difficult for you to express your fears on a day-to-day basis because you are on your routine. You try to cover yourself with those positive feelings, and you are not willing to let any negative feeling enter your mind, because if not, you think that is going to jeopardize your work and you're going to perform worse because you are letting bad thoughts enter to your mind. But I think that the question truly to ask what your fears are being able to look yourself in the mirror and analyze really what those things are happening, not totally judging that they are bad, but really thinking out loud if they make sense to be in your life. Because if they are fears and they are blocking you, I think that there's something you need to do at that specific time or for that specific fear, and that was more or less the idea. Not to put something or to read all of them, but one of the fears I had was to fail my circle. And truly, I think that it was more about the fact of judging or thinking how my friends are going to judge me if I fail, and therefore thinking that by not performing at my best, I was failing them. And I think that that was a really tricky and specific thought I have concerning my fears, and that I need to keep digging. Same as the first one I said, that was clear for me, not being better than what my father was. And I think that those are, as I was saying to my mother today, those are bags we put in our shoulders that sometimes they shouldn't be there. It's not our exercise to focus on being better than X, Y, Z, in this case, my father. I think that is more about feeling comfortable about who you are and who you want to be. And for yourself to be able to look in the mirror and say, I'm proud of you, that's the best exercise you can do. Not doing it for someone other than yourself. And those at least are fears that if I sit, or what I did this week, when I sat, there were elements that I saw that had a total correlation with some actions that I wasn't able to make in the past because of those fears. And that's the moment when you know that you have something really strong there that you need to really understand and surpass, because it's blocking maybe actions or steps that are really going to make you happy or fulfilled, and therefore they shouldn't be there if they are not allowing you to have something better because of those fears. So those were more or less the things I went through. So uncomfortable questions, then your fears. I have a totally white page, and I think that that's the one I will need to move forward this next week. And it's really, the question is, who are you and what defines you? And I think that those questions, lady, I saw a podcast where there was a girl saying, if you had to present, or even my girlfriend, if I had to present myself to her again without saying what I've done, what is my job, what I have studied, what if I have own a house or not, and raising anything that is materialistic, how would I express or present myself to her? That is really an interesting question, because when you leave all those elements aside, it's really about your core values and more your thoughts, your way of perceiving the world, your way of willing to be an element or not, or an action in the world that you are going to be living, or you want only to surf it as if it was a wave, and if you are alive in 50 years, you have done your job because you enjoyed at least the wave. So I think that those questions are really important. So before being able to go to those, I needed to ask myself, one of the pages I think that worked the best for me, which was, what do I not, what I don't like about myself. And guys, this, I think that was the moment when I realized that the work I was going to be in need of putting to surpass my older version was going to be harder than I thought. And to give you a quick sum up of what were the things I learned about myself when really willing to do the exercise of listening my own thoughts and saying them out loud. I think that I judge myself, which is not something bad, because I wasn't pushing myself harder. It was really about being truthful, instead of being really hard on the adjectives that I was going to choose. But to give you an example, I realized, even though I should have done this sooner, that one of the elements that could define me is I'm too many times too ambitious. I'm unhappy. I complain more than I think. I'm materialistic. This one is going to be really complicated to work on, but to give you a clue on what those kind of exercises should put yourself in front of, that I'm sometimes pessimistic, which is really funny because I have defined myself all my life as an optimistic person. And truly, when I sat and I really listened to the thoughts I was having, they weren't optimistic, they were pessimistic. And I don't want myself to be defined as a pessimistic, even though I'm defining myself. This exercise hasn't been done yet with people, friends, family, but I think that the fact that I did it alone has some merit, or at least I really wanted to do it like this because I wanted to judge myself first and try to change those specific adjectives and the things I don't like about myself first, to like myself more, and then be able to present myself with my friends, family, and girlfriend, and be able to say, do you like this new version, or are you seeing some things that you don't like about myself that I should also be improving? And then check if those specific adjectives are the same that I was able to put in this list, and then I will know that I have a clue and that I'm on the right path. I'm unsatisfied and unhappy, too much demanding of love, sometimes too nervous. I'm really incapable of relaxing, and that has been a pain in the ass, I was going to say, because in the last 6 or 7 years. I think that in all my professional experiences, every time I had the chance of not going on holidays, I took that chance of not going on holidays, whether because I've resigned, I got those holidays paid, whether because I got fired and I got those holidays paid. And at the end, I think that the fact that I wasn't able to stop was because of my fear, as I mentioned before, or one of those, who was if I'm stopping, I'm not performant, and then if my worth is not on my professional side, then I'm not worth it. And those are truly things that I needed to write down and then ask some questions about those things. For example, how many of those things are important to you? How many of those things can be put on something that depends on you, something that is personal on the side? Are they towards or regarding others? And one of the funniest questions I asked, and I remember putting a dangerous element here, which was I didn't write down that I had ego. And that was a funny element because I think that I have been escaping from that feeling, for really admitting that I had and I was a person with a huge ego. And I think that it was funny because when I write down the things I didn't like about myself, I forgot to put that one. So only for you to see that sometimes this exercise is about being able to come again, reread them, see if you are missing a specific one, and really put the courage of admitting the hard truth before life knocks you out again because of it. So that will be the idea. Last but not least, and this is the one I'm going to be working about also, the definition of myself and how I'm going to be presenting myself forward. And it's, what is your concept of an ideal life? And this for me is the one that I saw a lot of YouTube videos, podcasts, read books, etc. And I think that this one was written almost, if you read it vertically, in every kind of content that I was reading, but I wasn't able to really sit and say, if you had to choose specifically three main drivers, or 2 or 3 main drivers in your life, that if you are capable of doing them, you will really feel happy, fulfilled, and at your best, proud of you, which those 2 or 3 drivers will be. And I think that I needed to do a list of what I consider myself to be that ideal life, and be able to put on that list how many of those are focused on the me, meaning me, how many of those could be traumas from when I was younger, how many of those are materialistic thoughts. You could imagine that someone that defines himself as materialistic, one of the things I put, and I read it in a funny way, and it was funny for me to write down also, it was more than one house, more than one car, success. Those were truly things that I needed to admit, because if I'm including them as drivers in my life, and those are materialistic thoughts, when I reach them, it's finished. And it's true that whether it's Simon Sinek or other big philanthropists in this era, they talk about an infinite game. And I think that drivers should be things that you can touch in the short term, meaning I can select a driver and be able to do it tomorrow and then the day later, etc. But that should be infinite, because you shouldn't be able to imagine that one of them are to build a great family. If that's my driver, it should be something that I'm capable of doing with short-term actions every day, but that normally wouldn't be accomplished as a perfection thing ever. So that's also what is interesting. It should be an infinite game, because it should be knowing that you are putting yourself towards that goal and you are capable of living it each day. That should be really the thing you should enjoy, instead of understanding it as drivers that you should accomplish with a check box saying I've done it or I haven't done it. I think that drivers should be infinite. If you select to be a good person and be able to help others, you will always have someone else to help at the end of that line. So that's the reason why I think that those drivers should be infinite. And that's what I'm going to leave you with. This is going to be the exercise I'm going to be doing this week. So it's quite exciting because it's going to be hard to do, and I will come back, of course, next week telling you how it went, how was the advancement I did, and I should also orientate myself, if not next week, on the following weeks, in order to first set the basis, and that will be my objective this summer, set the basis of who I want to be, and from there being able to know what I want to do on my day-to-day basis, as a routine, as a work, as a profession, as a dedication, as a passion. I think that I'm an entrepreneur. I said it in my first video. These videos are going to be about trying to generate business ideas, get them and make them happen. And I think that the best way for me to really get in a perfect combination with myself will be to find the perfect business idea for me, Alexis, and execute it and be able to smile each morning because I know that I'm doing what I've decided to do instead of what I think is the best for me to do. And that will be what I'm leaving you for. Next week, see you with more. If you like this content, please follow me. You have all my socials available, and I will be happy to talk with you anytime. So thanks a lot, and see you next week.